Hey, glad you are here. This is going to be a conversation that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And some of why I'm wearing what I'm wearing is because a lot of people have certain rules around where they're supposed to look like when they show up. And I figured, you know what? I actually was going to show up without a shirt on, but I thought, yeah, it might be a little bit too much for some people just because, whatever. They're going to project some things onto me, and that's all good. So I thought I'd put on my baseball cap and just dress in a t-shirt and be a little bit different than what I usually show up here as, because I really have done a lot of healing around this whole topic around shame. And see, everything is black, and this is where shame likes to hide, is within our subconscious. And because of that, there are components of it that we want to keep hid and not really look at this part of us that really, really does not like to have light brought to it. Because our ego does this wonderful thing that says, hey, you got hurt and we want to keep this in the darkness. And as long as we keep it in the darkness, you are not going to be able to step into your greatness. And this is what takes out more people than anything. This wonderful thing called shame. And a great way to look at it, and it really shows up when it comes to sex and money. Let's just get real, right? This is one of the areas where we like, oh my gosh, I got to keep this in the darkness, because it gets the light, I'm going to re-experiencing the feeling that created it in the beginning. And see, we've all had various experiences in our lives where we have had shame, and we've had some people that said, you should be ashamed of yourself. How many of us have heard that? How many of us have heard, you should be ashamed of yourself, which is from somebody that really didn't understand or transcend the experience that they had when they were taught that phrase, and they ended up projecting it onto somebody else, not understanding. And again, it's just ignorance. It's actually willful ignorance at that point, because willful ignorance is just choosing to believe that the way you see things is the way it is, and it's not. And really not getting in touch with the pain that we experienced and healing it and transcending it, so that we do is we project it onto somebody else. I can tell you I've got lots of experience in doing that myself. And so the beginning of everything that changed my entire life, and as a result of me changing my life, it's been able to impact lots of other people's lives. And that was me almost ending my sister's life. And back in those days, I didn't really care. I didn't. And as much as I wish it was different, no, I don't wish it was different, because it took everything it took for me to get where I'm at today. But back then, I wasn't real too concerned about my emotions or anybody else's life. In fact, in those days, people used to tell me, like, Jeff, you drink and kill somebody. You're going to kill somebody. Of course, I'd say you, but I was dispensable. I didn't have any value. I was worthless. Um, felt that I was a nuisance to humanity, and was going to go out with a bang. I felt God was disgusted with me. And because of that, it was just like, okay, that's how I live my life. But never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would have my sister in that car. And when my sister almost lost her life as a result of how I was showing up in life, it made me really start looking at some things a whole lot different. And back then, I used to have a lot longer hair, and I ended up having like really, really long hair down past my shoulders. And I didn't realize what I was doing back then. But when I started going bald, I was suicidal. And the reason I didn't really realize why I was suicidal. But now looking back on it, it was very clear to me why I was suicidal, is because me losing my hair meant that I couldn't cover up my shame anymore. See, I've got a scar about that long down the back of my neck from where my neck was fused together as a result of that car accident. But it's not so much the scar, it's what the scar is associated with. And of course, that is associated to the car accident where I almost took my sister's life and my life. And so my shame was getting exposed, and I couldn't live with that shame. And I did everything I could to serve my penance, if you will, on how the regret that I felt for almost taking my sister's life. Like, what kind of human do you have to be to almost take your sister's life? Well, you have to be a very irresponsible one. You have to be one that is not thinking or too conscious about anything. And back in those days, I was drunk all the time because I didn't like being with who I was, because I had so much shame inside of me. See, and there's things that we take on this thing called life, this journey of life, where we don't recognize the impact that it has on us. And I've been molested, I've been abandoned, I've been beaten, I've been all of the things that represent different experiences. And see what it is it's humiliation. It is humiliation is what causes these experiences. This is the narratives that we create around them. And we really want to do everything that we can to not experience that feeling of humiliation ever again. And see, as a children, we don't understand this. We don't understand that we are the ones that are literally creating the narrative of these experiences, right? And it's really important for you to understand that you are the creator of the narrative. You are the one that is interpreting whatever it is that you're experiencing. And so the more you understand this, the more power you have, the more willing you're going to be to step into experiences that you weren't willing to before. Because nobody embarrasses you other than you deciding that you are embarrassed, right? Like I have had some experiences as a child that was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I want to crawl into a hole and bury myself and not ever see it again, because I thought that everybody was looking at me. Of course, they probably were looking at me and going, man, this poor little dude, he's going through what he's going through. See, I grew up very poor, grew up very, very poor, and had some situations just beyond, obviously way beyond my control. And because of that, I wished that it would have been much different. But now I'm looking back on it, what I wish to be different has what's become my opportunity for me to teach other people on how to transcend certain beliefs that keep you playing small. We've all experienced humiliation at various levels, right? Like that's where I'm wearing my hat. I'm all goofy in a t-shirt. Like I'm having fun. Like I'm here to have fun. And the more we let go of the rules of how we're supposed to show up and understand, see what the bottom line is, what matters to me is my intention. My intention is to be here and provide value for people that could give them a possibility to change how they see their lives and really understand that they have the ability to create the life that they want. And it is them that determines the value in every single thing that they experience. So having that ability is freedom, right? Because it's this. So I'm watching this show, amazing movie. It was actually a movie I watched. I don't know how long ago it was, 3, 4 years ago. And I'm watching this coach train this kid that was like this kid. This coach saw this kid as like a protege that could make amazing things happen, and pretty good at seeing talent. And this was a coach that was washed up because he had a drinking problem and stuff like that, and he wanted to do something. He was done and living in the latter years of his life, and he wanted to do something that would make an impact. And so he finds this kid that has incredible talent, and the kid's got a major attitude problem. And the coach keeps working with him, and then the kid finally gets kicked off the track team. And this coach goes and looks him up and says, "Hey, I'll coach you. I will take you to where you want to go, but you're going to have to do it my way." And he takes this kid through, like, oh my gosh, it was painful watching it. Takes him through incredibly painful regiment. And the kid's going, he breaks the mile up into quadrants, and he's running the first quadrant, and the kid falls down on the ground. He's just like screaming in pain, like, oh my gosh, I can't take that. I can't take it. The pain, the pain, the pain. And this coach walked up to him and said something that just absolutely freaking blew me away. Just blew me away. And what he said was, it is fear of the pain that is stopping you. And see, that's the same thing with us, is like we have this shame that is trapped inside of our body, energetically trapped in our body. And because we haven't transcended it and moved beyond it or changed the narrative which created that, then we are afraid of re-experiencing that, remembering. And so we're going to do everything we can to avoid that. It's just like we got a thorn in our side that we don't want to look at. Our entire body is going to overcompensate so that we don't sit there and poke that thorn. But what we're going to do is we're going to create atrophy. And that atrophy is putting us in a prison. So it's really important for you to understand, yes, trauma is trauma. Please do not hear that I'm not minimizing some of the experiences that some people have had. It amazes me. It literally amazes me at what humans are capable of doing to other humans. It blows me away. And thinking of some of the things that I did when I was in full of pain, and it just, oh my gosh, it was horrific, like the stuff that I used to do, because hurt people, and I was full of hurt, and I did cause a lot of other hurt. If you go watch my video on my apology to humanity, you'll see, like, I've done some things that were like, wow, I look back on it, but I understand I'm not that person who did that anymore. Like I've just kept going and transcending and letting go and integrating different patterns and different beliefs and letting go of the ones that didn't send me or wasn't aligned with the life that I really wanted to create. So today I'm able to understand a little bit better of how to love somebody, how to let somebody love me, how to hold space for somebody, how to be compassionate and empathetic towards somebody rather than getting the life sucked out of me because of the shame and the things that I'm running from, right? That's being codependent. Codependency is me not looking at my own stuff and wanting somebody else to depend on me so that I don't have to look at my stuff. That's how I create the need, right? And it ends up sucking the life out of me. And then they're in control of my life. And then there's the other side of it, which is being the narcissist, which I don't have the ability to care about anybody else, right? So it has the polarity of this and it shows up different ways because we're not dealing with our wounds. And see, the wounds are being able to let go of the energy of what we experience. Like I've been molested many, many, many times, and it was horrific. I have been abused horrifically. And I'm not saying that from a victim standpoint. I'm saying that from I understand pain, right? And if we sit there and ignore it and don't really look at what this created, I mean, case in point, how many of you have been in classrooms and somebody asks a question like, oh man, I hope somebody doesn't call on me, right? Like, I don't call on me. Like, I don't want to have that happen. That used to be me. Like, the reason is because I had experience when I was in kindergarten, right? Like, I was the first kid that got to sound out the letters of the alphabet, right? And she says, sound out the letter A. Of course, I said apple, right? And I didn't realize she wanted me to say or and I said, Apple. The entire class laughed at me. The entire class laughed horrifically, laughed at me. And there were some kids at that point in my life that used to bully me. And so I went, don't ever pick on me and ever again in a class. But I didn't recognize that it was something that got infused in me when I was in kindergarten, right? And this is what happens to us. Like, I remember when I was doing a spelling bee, they asked me to spell accident. I spelled it incorrectly. And of course, the whole class laughed. I was, again, one of the first ones that got to speak, got to participate in the spelling bee. And as a result of it, don't ever pick me. Don't ever put me in front of people again. Right. But there's been obviously lots of work that I have done because I recognize that my journey has been the tool that is going to empower other people to step beyond things that they don't think is possible. Right. The only thing that holds you back is the stuff that you remember, your history. Like, what are you accessing? Are you accessing your history, or are you accessing your source? Are you accessing your ability to create something new? Right. But unfortunately, and everybody, including me, will continue to access the history until they start understanding the tools where they realize that they are literally the authority figure in your life, because we have been conditioned to believe a lot of things about authority. Right. And it's super important that you not reject authority, but you understand the impact that authority has on us. And again, not rejecting it. And see, this is some of the things is because people have been impacted or wounded by certain things or certain aspects. What they do is they reject it and they rebel against it, right? Like, how many kids have been raised in a dysfunctional home and they become dysfunctional by creating the complete opposite of it, not recognizing that there was some things that were effective in it, but how it was delivered was not so effective. So we don't learn how to transcend the shame, the humiliation that we experienced. Like, I remember being at a baseball game and I had some certain family members show up and they were obliterated. And I sat there and I was a pitcher of and I wanted to crawl in a freaking hole, right? Like, alcoholism is like, being in around alcoholism is like so humiliating for a child, right? Like, I've had friends, yeah, I don't even want to go there. And I've done it myself. Like, when I was drinking, I passed out right in the middle of the town, right underneath the water tower, passed out for the whole night. They had town had a town celebration, and I got so drunk and I passed out underneath the water tower. That's what alcoholism does. It's not interested in how you show up. It's interested in only surviving and doing everything it can to take over the host. Right? That's what addiction does. And I've had lots of issues in different areas of addiction. So addiction is a result of something that we are ashamed of, that we have been humiliated from our past, and not even necessarily our past. Like, I just had a friend that was drunk, He was in a car accident with his son, and his son is no longer here. His son is no longer here. Now he has to live with that for the rest of his life, right? And how the narration that he creates around that is going to determine how he moves through that. If it's going to control the rest of his life and it's going to create a prison for him that he's not going to be able to move through, or he can change the narrative to understanding that that's what he did at that time in his life. And I'm not by any means endorsing that kind of behavior at all, right? But it's looking at what do you create? And judgment is a great one that creates shame, creates humiliation. But where does judgment come from? It comes from protecting a wound. It's a defense mechanism, right? So we don't understand that when we're a little kid. When someone says, you should be ashamed of yourself, you should be ashamed of yourself, right? Is understanding it's a defense mechanism of not being able to look at ourselves. Like, how many of our parents said, you know what, I screwed up? I mean, how many parents will say that? Not many. There's not many parents that will say these things, and not many parents out there that will be human for the child to understand, like, hey, I didn't, I'm working through this as well. Or how many parents have come back and cleared some of the things that they've learned as they become more adults. There's not many out there that have experienced that, right? And so I want to offer, the shame is the opportunity for you to grow. Like, shame is the lowest level of consciousness, and I go through this in great detail in my potential code. Shame is a level that allows darkness to come in and literally control you. I mean, it is so insidious, but it is coming from a place of where you've had humiliation. One of the greatest ways to get in touch with this is literally go stand in front of a mirror buck naked. Like, get completely nude, stand in front of a mirror, and start getting in touch with the conversation you have about your body, right? Because obesity, what's one of the things about obesity is that they use the weight to protect themselves, right? Like, they don't want to be attractive because they had something happen in the past that has caused them to be shameful, and they want to do everything they can to bury it, right? No judgment. It just is what it is. Like, I've got my stuff too. Trust me, I got my stuff. Like, I went the other way. And when I'm going to be into bodybuilding, I'm going to be into martial arts. I'm going to be into getting really big and muscular so that you can't hurt me, right? Not recognizing that I literally created a prison for myself. So it's looking at it. It's acknowledging it, right? Like, what times in your life were you humiliated? And what happens when we're humiliated, it is such an intense experience. It literally separates ourselves from our wholeness, right? And so it's important to go back and not dwell on it and things like that, but going back as an adult and recognizing that I didn't know any better back then, right? And this experience, see, as we're a child, our unconscious, our subconscious takes everything personal, right? Like, a child walks into a room and everybody's laughing, the child's going to automatically think that everybody's laughing at that child, because they don't have the cognitive ability to process whether something is negative or positive or function or dysfunctional or effective or not effective. They don't have that cognitive ability yet. So it's your opportunity for you to go back as an adult and look at these situations from a disassociated perspective and getting the lessons out of that and allowing yourself to understand that it wasn't about you, right? And just that in itself is going to help you loosen up the intensity of the humiliation that we experienced when we were younger, right? Like, kids are kids. Kids are mean, like, especially when you get a group of them together and then they all have to go along to get along, right? How much of us have experienced that? Like, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But that people will gang together and that you will go along with the group so that you don't have to experience being humiliated by being an outcast, right? Like, that used to be one of the greatest forms of torture, was exile, like getting you out of the tribe that you were born in. That is the greatest, most humiliating thing that you could ever do to somebody. And they use it as a form of punishment. Well, we've had that happen in many different things. Like, I had an experience. Yeah, I'm not going to, I mean, friends, just understand, just trust me. I have experienced humiliation on a level that's like incredible. And I, just because of who it is, like, I've got to protect certain people, right? But just understanding this can be your opportunity to really have compassion and empathy for other people. Because as long as we keep denying the wounds, we are literally doing that to the parts of us that got humiliated, that got separated from us. Like, this is the stuff I work with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. These are my clients. And recognizing what is it that stops them from going into higher levels of of achievement is this very thing, right? Or they'll go really well in one area and let all the other areas fall apart because they have shame in these areas, right? So what areas were you humiliated in your life? What domains of your life were you humiliated in, right? Like there's people that don't like sport, like creativity. Like this has been my jam. This has been my area of my life that I've done a lot of work around. Like a child takes something up that they've created, goes to a ignorant, and I'm saying ignorant because they had the same thing happen to them, but they don't know how to hold space for something. But naivety is not knowing, right? Like there's all kinds of things where people just don't know, but then there's ignorance of not even understanding that the same thing happened to you and you're choosing to do it to a child. Like a child walks up with a creation that they did and they want to share it with somebody they love, and like, look what I did, look what I did, this is awesome, woohoo, it's so awesome. And the person looks at it and goes, what in the hell is that? Like, what are you thinking? Child's completely humiliated. Totally takes out of their head that they're ever creative. It's not that they're not creative, it's that being creative equals humiliation, right? Just like athletes, right? Like being an athlete, having an athletic ability, they go out, try out for athletics or something like that, and some kid humiliates the crap out of them, right? And they go, I'm not athletic. And they totally throw that possibility out. So looking at or speaking in front of the class, right? Like they say that this fear is the fear of public speaking is one of the worst fears. It's right up there with being burned alive. Now, that blew me away when I heard that. But see, it's not the public humiliation that they're afraid of, or the public speaking that they're afraid of. They're afraid of re-experiencing something they experienced in the past. That's what they're really afraid of. They're afraid of that somebody else is going to look at them the way they look at themselves. Okay. So understanding it's the narratives that we tell ourselves, the scripts that we tell ourselves is what we're really afraid of. And it's fear of the pain that stops us from stepping out into the unknown. There was a time in your life that you loved making mud pies. There was a time in your life you would jump in a puddle. I drank out of gutters when I was a kid. Like I was crazy when I was a kid. You used to be fearless. And see, fearlessness is literally letting go of the anticipation of loss. So humiliation is what creates that feeling of loss, that feeling of separation. And this is where shame dwells, right? So really looking at yourself, what areas were you humiliated as a child, and then putting it in context and understanding. Kids are naive, right? And kids are going to do what their parents did to them, or that something that they experienced as well. And understanding that it's not about taking it personal. Excuse me. You want to hear more about this and go into other areas of your life and figuring out how you can step into your fullest potential, by all means, check out the potentialzonegroup.com. Some amazing things going on there. And then I'm also doing a workshop, like really powerful workshop over at the masteringpotential.com. Check out masteringpotential.com. A lot of people have gone through it. Amazing results already. Would love to have you go through it as well. And if you got any comments or anything below, comment them below. I want to do everything I can to support people step into their fullest potential. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to create as many potentializers as possible. Please share this content. That would mean a lot to me. If you found a value, of course, if you don't find a value, don't share it. But if you found something that was of value to you, or you were able to have a breakthrough or something like that, please comment that below and let me know how I can support you. I've been doing this for well over 30 years. And have had some amazing results. The thing that separates me from everybody else is the results my clients get. I have the most awesome clients out there, most amazing students. I love them. I love watching them stepping into their fullest potential. It's been amazing. And shame is one of the things that holds people back more than anything. And it's nothing more than, well, I don't want to say nothing more. It's just learning how to transcend that energy and recognizing that people are just people. Like I said, it's amazing to me what some people have done or what people are capable of. And like I said, my friends, I've been molested, I've been beaten, I've gone through it. And yes, I'm a male, and that's a little bit different for a female as well. But it's looking at what are the things that you are humiliated at, and then start getting a little bit more granular. And if there's anything I can do to support you, by all means, please reach out, and I'll do all I can to support you on this journey. So I appreciate you being here. I know it's a touchy subject. That's why I wanted to bring it to the attention of everybody. So I appreciate you being here. Much love, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. Take care. Have a good one.